Today, we're here with Nate Hull, a regional fisheries biologist, and we're going to be talking all things flathead catfish. Nate, we understand you've got some pretty cool research going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think it's pretty cool. I mean, flatheads are like way better than bass, so we can just start about talking about those and just forget this bass
You
and
just angered like half the listeners.
Yeah, you know, we got to start strong.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it might make them hang out a little longer so that they can counter argument.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, a little rage bait.
Yeah, a little rage.
We are talking about flathead catfish, and like Oklahoma's one of their best black bass fisheries, so it's a good pair.
That's true.
Yeah.
Friendly competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, do you want to give us a little background on the history of the flathead catfish?
Yeah, so flatheads are native to Oklahoma. They've been here a long, long time. I think the first recorded occurrence was way back in the 1800s when guys are driving across the plains and catching railroads and finding fish wherever they can. So it's not something that we as a department or an angler introduced 50, 60 years ago. It's something that's been here forever. It's an apex predator in the water, so they love to eat live sunfish. That's kind of their shtick. They'll hide in holes and log jams and things like that to ambush their prey, and that's why if you've looked at photos of them, they're so mottled and have that really flattened head.
They look incredibly cool compared to like many different fish species.
Right.
Just their body shape and their uniformity is insane.
Yeah, and they're absolutely beautiful too. I mean, all the different modeling colors you get. I mean, you can find flatheads that are almost jet black and then all the way up to these bright emerald greens. So they have a lot of variation in color that makes them really eye pleasing, but I think one of the coolest things about them is just that apex predator that's in them. I mean, if you put them in your farm pond, you're not going to have very many sunfish left over because they're just going to eat them all and they're going to get giant bellies. I mean, we'll catch them. Go ahead, Jacob.
If you decide to stick your hand in their mouths.
Yeah, that's fun too.
Yeah.
It's
they'll chomp on that guy.
Yeah, one of the many ways to catch them. Yeah, and we'll catch them in like trap nets when we're running nets for crappie. Yeah, and they'll be like so round we can't pull them out of the net because they just ate all the crappie in the net. So they're ferocious. I think that's one of the coolest things about them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Getting bit by them was pretty fun too, though.
Yeah.
Do we have a lot of like research on flatheads?
We actually don't. Very little. So we don't understand a lot about the flathead catfish, and that's really because it's kind of flown under the radar over the years. When the wildlife department was formed and it started creating its wildlife laws, flathead catfish weren't as high of a priority then. And so they are described sport fish, but they're not a game fish. So some of the laws are different between those two different classifications. So of all of our catfish in Oklahoma, we have blue cats, channel cats, and flatheads. The first two, the blue cats and the channels, they are both game fish, but a flathead is not. So it's always kind of been forgotten, and that's where the research needs to be known. Up until a few years ago, we didn't know how long they lived or how quick they grew. We just know that we can find fish up to 80 pounds in some systems, so we know they get real large. But we didn't know that. We didn't really know how to catch them very well, and so we're getting there.
Do we know how long
they
they
get
live
bigger
now?
than 80 pounds? Okay,
they do get bigger.
Johnny's
than 80
uncle
pounds.
told me one time about a minivan size catfish.
Right? Yeah, and I hear that that's a flathead or a blue cat, depending on.
Yeah, there's no telling.
Yeah.
But jumping into the next thing, as you're talking about, they're gaining popularity, and due to this increasing size that we're noticing, a lot of trophy anglers are starting to target them.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go into their like trophy characteristics a little bit?
Yeah, so flathead catfish are pretty long-lived. We don't know the oldest one out there yet because their age range is so variable. But like with some of the research we've done on Grand Lake, we have fish all the way up to 36 years old. Wow. And so that 36-year-old fish actually wasn't the biggest one. A lot of times the biggest ones are pretty young. But I mean, we have a flathead that was caught around Fort Gibson Lake last year by an angler. I believe it was 90 some pounds. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But that fish was what we call a pre-impoundment fish. So that fish was born before the lake existed.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was in the river system. And so these big catfish are sought after by anglers who wouldn't want to catch a 90-pound fish, you know. They fight really, really hard. They're line screamers. They'll take off and run and disappear with your bait. And there's new trophy angling that has come about, and catfish tournaments are gaining in popularity. And these guys are typically targeting blue cats and flatheads, but they're using live bait to get these massive fish, and they'll do kind of like a bass tournament does. They may have a couple fish as a bag for the day, and it's the highest weight wins.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So you talked about that fish being a pre-impoundment fish.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of go into how y'all as a fisheries team figured that out?
Yeah, so that fish in particular, the individuals that caught it did want to harvest that fish. And we have a bone that's inside of fish that we can use to age them. It's called an otolith. And so in catfish, we use that little ear bone. We cut it with a special saw, and we count the rings just like you would a tree. And so that fish, they counted the rings out, and several people did it. We had like 6 different staff members that counted those rings to make sure that we were right. You know, there's a lot of rings, they're small. It's hard to tell. So we had a lot of staff members count it, and its date that it was born came back to before the lake even existed. So that fish was in the Arkansas River before Fort Gibson Lake was impounded.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Can you
so cool.
see these rings with your eyes? Do you have to use a magnifying glass?
Not on catfish, no. Some species you can see them with your eyes. The otoliths of like a crappie, I can usually like hold in my hand and hold them up to the light.
Some
And I can
sunshine.
count. Yeah, I can count some rings that way. Catfish, the otoliths on catfish are tiny little balls, essentially. And so the rings are on the inside of that little sphere. And so we have to cut them with a jewelry saw. And then we have to use a lot of magnification. So, like I said, they're small. A bass otolith, you know, it might be that big, but a catfish otolith is really, really small.
Interesting.
And so we cut them down the middle, and we'll use a dissecting microscope with like 10 to 40 power to look at them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And it's like rings like a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a tree, just like you learn probably in like elementary school biology. We do the exact same thing every day.
Awesome. All right. So fisheries staff is basically just a bunch of No, I'm just kidding. Edit that out. Anyways,
A little better.
just kidding. We love our fisheries staff.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, if we've got fish living longer than before the lakes existed, these fish, I mean, are they slow growing, or are they, you know, you said some of the ones that were the biggest weren't the oldest.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
do y'all know why?
There's a lot of variation. Think of it like humans, right? I mean, I don't look like Shaq. I'm not 7 foot tall, you know, so everybody grows at a little different rate, you know, so some of our catfish are growing really slow, and some of them are growing really fast. But if you compare the different species, the flatheads are growing quicker than, say, a blue catfish or a channel catfish. And a lot of that is largely due to the size of their mouth and their diet. You know, so a blue cat and a channel catfish, they're eating a lot of mollusks and different things when they're really young and their mouths are small. But flatheads, since they have that giant head on them, they can take advantage of fish prey sooner. And so then they can grow quicker. But at Grand Lake, I mean, our youngest fish was 2 years old. It weighed 1/4 pound. Our oldest fish was 35 years old, and it only weighed 20 pounds. But then we had a 16-year-old fish, which was our largest to date, and it was over 50.
Wow.
You know, so that 50-year-old fish that had only lived 16 years, I mean, he or she, I don't know which one it was, you know, but it grew exponentially over that time. And so those trophy fish are the ones that those guys are looking for. They want to find the best growers, the most athletic fish that are out there.
Are y'all noticing yet which lakes have like different patterns, or
Not quite.
not
So
quite?
that's
Okay.
where the lack of research comes into play, right?
Yeah.
So we only have a couple of lakes where we've really done this kind of research on flatheads. And so like right now we're doing this on Grand Lake. There's another biologist team that's doing something similar on Fort Gibson. Looking at some of this stuff, but we don't really have a good graphs statewide on what that breadth of age is. I mean, if we look statewide, we might find that there's 100-year-old flatheads out there. Who knows?
So how would this research that we're about to go into impact how they spawn? Can you kind of give us more information about flathead spawning?
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to learn. That's the main goal of the research project, is to look into spawning and something we might call site fidelity. So if you're unfamiliar, flathead catfish, unlike maybe a bass or a bluegill is laying its eggs just basically in a hole, you know, little depression they make in the gravel. Flathead catfish, they're finding deep holes in rocks underneath boat ramps, things like that is where they're hiding, and they're laying their eggs in there. And then the male will stay in that hole for a month sometimes, and not only protect the eggs, but to protect the young that hatch from that. And so that male is adding that parental care throughout time. And so these flathead catfish, one of the very popular ways you may have heard people catch them is called noodling, where you just like enjoy getting your hand bit by a vice all the time.
Yeah, stick it in
You
a
did that
dark.
not long ago, didn't
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was a couple episodes ago. We went out with fishery staff.
Yeah.
They didn't want me to name the lake, so we won't do that.
Oh,
but
well, that's good.
we had a good time noodling. It
Yeah,
was
you got to
fun.
keep those noodling spots secret. It's a lot of fun, right? You don't want to.
Yeah, I think it was more because they were their personal spots. But we
I
might not.
see. Yeah, well,
not say
us
that too
fisheries
loud.
biologists are known to have personal spots.
It's perk of the
Right.
job.
Yeah,
Right.
it
Part
is
of the
perk.
job.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Hey,
It's
if
true.
you want your own fishing spots, come work for us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So.
You get all the background info, and
Yeah.
you get to cheat a little bit too. Like the average angler can't go use an electrofishing boat.
Oh, this is true.
You know,
Facts.
we get to find
This
where
is
the
true.
bass live with an electrofishing boat.
That's
I know.
true.
So my dad brings that up like every day.
I bet he does.
Hey,
And you can do that with flatheads too.
Yeah.
there's some older generation folks that might argue with you and say
Well-
you just haven't caught me yet.
That is true. That is true. The old crank telephone guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That or the old lighter tosser and
Oh, well, we're doing
Yeah.
dynamite now.
yeah. There's a
Like
few
it.
different methods. Them
We
old
don't get to
guys
use
like
dynamite
do it.
though. Maybe we should. Maybe we should talk to Richard about that.
Maybe.
Talk to our chief.
I mean,
about getting
I don't know
if
dynamite
that
for
would
sampling.
fly.
I don't know if we get the okay.
That's got to be like a public health hazard or something.
I don't know. I mean, we do it controlled scientifically. It's for science.
Why don't we go into the capture methods that do work on the
Oh, okay.
flathead
Yeah. Well, what
that
does
we're
work?
allowed to do?
Yeah. Well, noodling works. That's
okay.
one of them.
Yes.
And so that's one of the we're looking at this research project. We're targeting those fish that are in those nesting cavities.
Mhm.
Sometimes when we're noodling, we even feel eggs that are in there.
Oh, that's neat.
And so that's why noodling works, right? So I mentioned that these male flatheads are protecting their eggs. They're protecting their young. And so they don't want some little squiggly thing coming in there and taking all their eggs. So they don't have hands. So their instinct is to bite whatever comes into the nest. And so that's our most efficient method.
Yeah.
We're tagging some fish, and over 80% of our fish have come from noodling holes. But we do have some other methods too. So we'll catch them in gill nets in the winter. We'll set these big, long, they're upwards of 600 feet long, probably, about 12 feet tall gill nets, and they'll just swim in and they can't swim anymore. So they get stuck. And then the catfish, they like to roll. So they'll roll up and we'll pull those out of there. And then sometimes we use electrofishing too. But one thing we're kind of learning is that electrofishing with flatheads can be difficult. They don't always like to come to the surface when we want them to.
Mm-hmm.
That could be because they're hiding in holes. Who knows?
Hitting the roof.
They're just hitting the roof. We don't really know yet. But when we do that, we got to have chase boats and this big live action thing
Mhm.
where you have a fish 200 yards away and you're yelling at the guy that's driving, be like, you need to go over there. And then
Catfish
you're
rodeo.
flying over there full speed.
Scoop 'em up.
Catfish rodeo.
There you go.
That's the three ways that we are catching them right now. But noodling seems to be the most effective. And so that's one reason why we're focusing on that.
Well, you're talking about
Interesting.
putting tagging on them.
Yeah.
So can you kind of explain what these tags look like or what some of the anglers might be looking for
Yeah.
if they come across it?
Right. So if you're looking for flatheads, if you want to catch them in the Grand River system or even in the Fort Gibson system, there's going to be some tagged fish out there. And what that looks like is flatheads have two little bones right here kind of on their cheek next to their gills. And we wrap that little piece of plastic around those bones and it just kind of dangles there like an earring. And so it's bright green. It's got our phone number on it as well as a number that identifies that unique fish. And so we've put about 288 of those out today. So if there's, I don't know how many flathead are in Grand Lake, but if there's like a couple thousand of them, we only tagged like 200. So
Okay.
it might be, the proverbial needle in a haystack, but there's a lot of
They're
tags
there.
out there. And they're, like I said, they're bright green. They sit on those bones. They're not harmful to the fish. They can still do everything they normally do. Doesn't get hung up on the holes or anything like that. And the reason we're tagging these fish is so that we know the behavior habits of that one individual fish. So does George, the flathead, does he come back to the same hole every single year? Or does he bounce around to different holes? Or sometimes does he stay out in the lake the whole time? That's one of the questions we're trying to answer is what are they doing? And so that unique number is perfect.
Mhm.
But one of the things we need from anglers is if you catch a fish that's got this tag in it, we need to know about it because tag doesn't just ping our cell phone and say, hey, there's George. We need
George is dinner.
right, exactly. We need you guys to tell us if you make George dinner, which you
Yeah.
totally can, by the way.
Yes.
A tag does not mean that you can't harvest that fish, but it's got a phone number on there. So if you just give that phone number a call or even shoot it a text message, we might have like 5 questions for you. We won't ask you to give up your secret spot, but if you can tell us like the general area where it was, that'd be great. And then tell us obviously if you harvested or released that fish,
Oh, that'd be really good
just so
info.
we know.
So, what would you call a study like this?
So this is just a movement study. So we're looking at movement and site fidelity. So how often does that fish go back to that same hole? And the reason for that is, like we said a minute ago, we don't really know a lot about them. So we don't know what implications there may be for that. You know, if George comes back to the same hole every year and he's 30 years old and all of a sudden you fill his hole in with concrete, well, does George go back, find a different hole? Or can he not spawn anymore because his hole's gone? You know, something like that. Or, you know, even worse, if his hole gets noodled a lot, how does that impact the fish populations? Are they still able to spawn and get off new recruits into the system? So it's a big movement study with a site fidelity piece added in.
Yeah, definitely. Why should anglers care about this study from their perspective?
Yeah, from their perspective, you know, flatheads, not only are they cool, but they're old and they may not be around forever type deal, you know? And so we as hunters and anglers have a responsibility to take care of our resource, even though that we're benefiting from it. And so part of taking care of that resource is not abusing the resource. And so myself as an angler, even though fishing for flatheads is a lot of fun, I also want to make sure that my kids and my grandkids can fish for flathead catfish.
Right.
And so if I was doing something unknowingly that was impacting the population, I would want to know, and I would want to keep from doing that. And that's kind of our job as fisheries biologists. I don't expect everybody to, you know, mark a bunch of fish and try to recapture them over the course of years. You know, that's our job of biologists, is to learn those pieces of information and then communicate it out to you guys so that you know, can be informed when you're out there angling.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's good to know with such a long-lived species, like it could take a while if there was low recruitment for us to notice that. So
Right. Yeah.
it's really good information.
Yeah. You know, we always say in the fisheries management world, if you're looking, crappie is about the best species to look at things like this, because a crappie's only living 3 to 4 years. So if you want to see a population level impact, you can see it in 3 to 4 years. Well, with flathead catfish, with them living 35 years plus, you know, I'd get to retire before a new fish comes around. You know?
Yeah.
And so what does that look like for the long term? Could we have already been doing damage from filling holes in, or noodling too much, or what have you? You know, any other method of catching them that we don't really know. So we need to learn these different aspects of their biology so that we can inform that and keep the fish around for generations to come.
Definitely.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
pretty fun.
Is there anything about this study or anything else that we haven't covered quite yet that you wanted to touch on today?
Yeah, so I mean, we want to ensure that you guys know that there's tags out there, but we want you to know that not only are they out there, and we want you to report them, but you can go and fish as you normally would.
Right.
And so we don't want to impact, just because it has a tag in it does not mean that you can't harvest that fish. And so you can definitely take that fish home. Matter of fact, we encourage that. Harvesting and eating fish, putting them in the oil is part of what we do as hunters and anglers. And so we want to encourage that. But we want you to know that, you know, we here at the wildlife department, you know, we are doing this interesting research stuff out there for you. A lot of times you don't know about it.
Right.
And so we want you to stay tuned, see what the different information we get, learn from this, what comes out of it. You know, maybe we learn that George has a special home that he loves. And there's not as many flatheads out there as we thought. And so maybe don't want to do that, but maybe we have to change limits to assess that. Or maybe we find out that George has 12 homes. He's a rich dude. He's got like lots of lake houses.
Lots of lake.
And so it doesn't
Lots
really
of lake
matter. And then
houses.
we tell you all, go noodle as much as you want.
Mhm.
Which is an awesome piece. Like, noodling is very fun. I was
sure.
against noodling when we started, and now I kind of like it. Or maybe just a little.
It grew on you.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about fishing for them a little bit, other than just the cool research stuff? I mean, I'm a fish nerd, so I think the research stuff is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go right into it. we've talked the research. There are probably some folks watching that have never caught a flathead.
Yeah.
Whether on rod and reel or by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a cool thing that you can do.
Right.
Can you kind of give us some tips and tricks to help folks catch their first flathead?
Yeah. The number one flathead candy that you can do, I say you can do anytime. I would say it's pretty year round. I don't know about your experience, Taylor, but my experience is a live bluegill is the best flathead candy you can possibly have. And so I'll really get one of two ways. I'll get my big surf rod like I use for snagging paddlefish. I usually use like a 60 or an 80-pound braid because I don't want to have to worry about it breaking off.
Right. You don't want that near stay record flatty and then
Yes.
come to realize, bang, you thought it was a near stay record, but you'll never know.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, I think that every time I hook a tree, but if it was a real fish, that would be nice.
That's true.
Yeah. So, and I also don't want to lose all my hooks when I hook trees.
Mm-hmm.
So the 80-pound test helps. You just pull the tree up with it.
There you go.
Yeah. But I'll put it on like a 60, 80-pound test. I'll get like a number 6 or a number 7 circle hook. And I'll either run that hook through the back of the sunfish or I'll run it through the tail of the sunfish. But the most important part with that is you want the fish to be able to move.
You want it alive.
You want it alive.
Yep.
Flatheads love movement. They love live fish.
Which makes them a weird catfish because they're like one of the few that's not a scavenger.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They're this apex predator. They're the, I don't know if you're into dinosaurs, they're like the raptor of the fish world.
No,
Like they want live stuff. So you can't just put a chicken liver on and expect to catch one.
Mm-mm.
You could try. You might still catch one on a chicken liver, but you're more likely to catch one on a live bluegill.
Yes.
So I'll rig it up that. I always rig it underneath a float because I don't like to sit and watch my rods forever. So I want to be able to instantly look out and see if the float's gone. So I'll put it on a big popping float. And then I'll put, I don't know, depends on the situation, maybe an ounce or 2 of lead below it. And really fish around big river swings. So this is a riverine fish. We have a lot of lakes in Oklahoma, but flatheads are a river fish.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can go up on the upper end of Grand Lake and the spring and the Neosho River, I'll find big swings in current where there's maybe like, log jam where a flathead might want to live.
Yeah, because
rocks.
And they like to like set up on those because they're an ambush predator.
Mm-hmm.
So those are structure's a good spot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So find some structure, cast that moving bait, that live bluegill out there and just sit and wait for a little bit. That tends to work. But if you're not into waiting like me, I'm impatient. I like to wait. You too?
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm
so
impatient.
the other way is just to wait till the water's warm and then go make one bite your hand. That one works too.
There's
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to go noodling, what's the best time of year?
I usually recommend June to July. Yeah.
Okay.
June and July, it gets you into the start of their spawning event. So they're just starting to enter in those holes. And then it kind of carries you through the main spawning event. If you wait too late, at least in Northeast Oklahoma, if you wait till August, a lot of the fish are done and all you have left is small males. So like noodling, we're going to catch the males, but we obviously want to try to catch the females too because they're going to be bigger.
There are times that they'll both be in the hole together.
There are times they're both in there. Then you can get like a two
for
wonder.
one.
Oh, that's so
Heck
cool.
yeah.
I've never done that. That would be cool.
That would
I'm
be
usually just a one fish wonder.
What's the biggest one you've pulled out of a hole?
Me personally?
Yes.
Or us?
You.
Well, me personally, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know if I want to say
Okay,
that.
definitely say it now.
It's only like 8 pounds.
Dude.
It's tiny.
That's still fun.
Hey, I
I've never,
understand.
as much as I love catching catfish, I've never noodled.
Well, you need to come with us.
Okay, I would love to go.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm
I
invited.
understand.
Grand
we
Lake,
filmed,
June 2026.
Perfect.
Let's go.
we filmed a whole podcast over noodling, and the first fish was too deep, so I couldn't get him.
Right?
The second fish was like maybe 8 pounds.
Yeah.
And needed a little assistance with that one because I couldn't get in the hole deep enough. So I
Right.
had to have a little guide or spotter or whatever you'd call it.
Yeah,
help me
hold
in
your
the hole.
feet. And,
Yeah.
really push you in there.
And then the rest of the day, Aaron knows like small fish for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then I still couldn't keep my hands on them. Them suckers are so slippery.
They are.
Like
are.
you almost have to bear hug them.
Yeah.
But then like, I don't know, I was a little nervous, so I was going to stab myself.
Did you let one go?
I might have accidentally
It's like the ultimate
dropped
sin.
I
Ginger.
know, dropped a fish or two.
Ah,
I
you
feel like
can't
I
drop
would
'em.
be like so giggly during this whole process of noodling.
Yeah.
Like,
I actually like almost screamed underwater the first time that my hand got bit.
Almost.
Almost.
I did.
You did
Maybe,
scream?
I don't remember, but there's a good chance.
Yeah.
He's gonna take it back.
Kendall said I didn't scream, but he watched me like squirm. So he thought I was going to scream.
There were just bubbles floating up from where you were freaking out.
Yeah, and then it was like, like this big. It was a little guy. But I gave it the old bass pose and really held it out really far.
Made him look way
So
bigger.
it looks huge. Yeah.
Gotta do it.
Got to do that for sure. But yeah, no, noodling is fun. You can go June to July timeframe. And, I've actually learned a lot about flathead noodling, even though I haven't caught like big ones.
Mm-hmm.
But like, even though they're this apex predator, they can be a little skittish. So I like to go into the whole hand first. I don't want to use a stick. Some people will use a stick to kind of feel if a fish is in there. I don't want to use anything like that because I find that if you touch them with a stick, now all they want to do is go to the back of their hole and just sit there. And sometimes, like you were talking about, you may need two people holding on to you to reach to the back of the hole. Sometimes these holes are huge.
Yeah.
They might be 7-8 foot deep. So I don't want them to go all the way to the back of the hole. So I'll stick my hand in first. I want them to grab me first. And then you can kind of go from there. But you kind of got to let them bite you, and then you got to kind of curl your fingers up, grab their lip to really pull them out of there. Because they're going to put up a fight, and they're slimy, like you said. They're all slippery. So they're hard to pull out of there. I've had some that like turn around in the back of the hole. Got to like grab their fin and kind of pull them up.
They don't want to hit you.
No.
But you get maybe one bite on a flathead.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're like, no.
Yeah, maybe not.
You're done.
One, maybe two.
You
some
don't
of them,
taste good.
some are more aggressive than others.
Right.
Some of them are like the Conor McGregors of the fish world. And they just want to get in there
They're
and
ready
get
to
you.
fight.
Yeah, they're ready to fight. But others are like, I'll stay in the back of my house.
It's crazy. I don't think that's the first time we've mentioned Conor McGregor on the podcast.
Really?
I don't know.
And I'm not even an MMA fan, so this is
Yeah,
aggressive.
I'm not either.
It's like the first aggressive person that came to my brain.
Please don't
He
say-
wins the
Anyway.
aggressive contest.
What
Not sponsored by Conor McGregor.
No.
What are you looking for when you're like, man, I want to go noodling, but I don't know where to go?
The first place I always go to is boat ramps. Boat ramps are easy in terms of finding holes.
Right.
Because the risk you run with noodling, and so that's worth talking about.
Yeah, get into it
Noodling is not without its risks.
for sure.
So the risk you come with noodling is finding a hole that, is maybe not always full of water. So it may have, like a snapping turtle or a water snake in it or something like that. I don't like those holes. I'm afraid of snakes. I'm not going to touch those. Taylor may play with snakes.
I know.
Jacob, you may play with snakes. Not me.
I don't do beavers.
I'm getting out of there.
Yeah.
Beavers are
See,
bad
beavers
too.
are the ones that would make me
Yeah,
nervous.
that's what-
Beavers will get you.
when I'm
That's what-
noodling, that's what makes me nervous.
Yeah. So we don't like to use holes that are out of the water a lot.
Yeah.
We want to use ones that are well submerged. So we'll start with boat ramps. We'll kind of follow the edges with our toes and kind of feel for holes. And then once you feel something that's like a hole, like I said, I don't want to stick my foot in there because I want my hand to get bit first, right?
Right.
So I'll immediately go under and kind of feel around with my hand first.
Yeah.
Okay.
But boat ramps are a great way to start. The other places to look are like we were talking about with angling for them. These big swings and river channel. If you're in a system that has rivers,
Mm-hmm.
you can find where there's like a wraparound current and some holes in it. There's going to be some flatheads there too.
Yeah.
So, but you want to start in June when it's they're going to be in holes. You'll still find a lot of empty holes. I mean, we might have six different holes on a boat ramp, and there'll only be fish in 2 of them.
Now, like at what depth do you notice like a certain depth of water that you're seeing more fish in the holes?
No, not at all. They're
Really?
crazy. I mean, we'll find them as shallow as just a couple of feet. There's been some that we've pulled out that we're on our hands and knees to get our arm in there. And then there's some that we're, diving down 6-7 foot and holding our breath. We got a guy in our agency that is scuba certified, and he came out with us to tag fish last summer with his scuba gear and was pulling fish out of like 10, 15 feet of water.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure that's where the VW bus size ones are.
Yeah.
If anybody's going to catch the big one,
I
it's
think
gonna be
even
Donnie.
deeper. I think they use like lake dams as their.
Oh, yeah.
They go
Yeah.
up under the dam.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like a guy in Texas that like broke the Texas state record with scuba. And he was like
That's crazy.
30 feet deep noodling a catfish. I don't want to do that.
Crazy.
That's the other thing too. When they're deep, once you get them out of the hole, like
They're a
you
lot
gotta
more
hold on.
feisty.
yeah,
the whole way up.
yeah, it's like a tank pulling on the end of your hand.
Right.
It's rough.
So let me ask you this. Do you notice a difference when they're in their holes in angling for them compared to other times of the year when they're maybe not in their hole as often?
As far as in their behavior,
Yeah, like as to coming out of that hole and eating, say, a live bluegill.
yeah. I think where you get into differences in that is going to be later in the spawn once there's actually eggs and fry in there.
Mhm.
Those males aren't going to leave. The males throughout the spawning season, if they're protecting eggs and fry, they're not going to leave the nest. So they're going to go without eating for several days. But the females, they're only in there for like a day
Right.
tops. We think anyway. We don't really know for sure, but we think they're only in there for a day or so. So you can definitely still catch those on rod and reel. And I know guys who have spots where they noodle, where
Mhm.
they'll also rod and reel fish, and they will catch
Okay.
fish that are kind of going to and from the holes.
Right.
So maybe those females are like, bringing food home to dad or something. I don't know what they're doing, but you
That's
can-
the whole point of
That'd
the
be a cool
research.
discovery.
exactly.
We got to learn.
We got to figure it out.
Figure
we
out
got to
what
learn
they're
these
doing.
things,
Yeah.
So, but I don't see a huge difference other than in my angling experience, I don't angle in June and July with a rod and reel, but
Right.
a lot of that's because I'm noodling, not because
Mhm.
I don't think I can catch them. Type
Makes
deal.
sense.
Yeah.
Different preference.
But the males definitely, they're not going to want to leave their hole.
Right.
So, and I think that's also a little bit of a behavior difference when you're noodling between males and females. Is the male is a lot more likely to bite you multiple times
Because it's protecting the
because
babies.
it's protecting the
Yeah.
babies.
Yep.
The female is not as likely. And sometimes, and we've even had some fish, like Kendall pulled out a 26-pounder last year, and he literally had to pry her mouth open with his hands to pull her out because she just wasn't cooperating. She was perfectly happy just sitting there chilling.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a little bit of different behavior.
Are y'all getting sex data on these whenever? Are y'all able to sex them?
That's difficult.
Yeah.
So, fish are not as easy to figure out gender as certain other animal species. And so, especially with flatheads, it's really difficult because once they get to about 20 inches long, the sexual dimorphism, so the difference in size between males and females, kind of gets really muddy when they get to that size, unless a female is full of eggs.
Right.
So
you can tell
more
in
than
the size of that
likely
belly.
in June and July, if you have a really round flathead, we can say that that's a female because she's full of eggs. But as you get later into the year, when those eggs have been laid now it's almost impossible to tell. So really the only way we know of to tell is if we age that fish, because that involves sacrificing the fish. So then we can cut it open and look and see if it's a male or a female. The other way we could do it is with ultrasound. But we haven't bought the ultrasound equipment yet. So maybe we just need a donation.
That's super cool.
If you want to know how many males and females are out there, just send a check to the Miami office and we'll buy
Oh,
ultrasound
there you
equipment.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. You can do it with your phone now.
I mean, I've been looking at them.
I bet you have.
I have.
Because you want to know too.
I do.
You want to know how many males and
Oh,
females are out there.
goodness.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And so I
But
think that's
it's
a
really-
super cool tool.
It is a cool tool. And it's very hard to tell. Almost impossible. Especially for the average angler. If you guys,
Right.
especially if you're catching a flathead for your first time, I would just call it a female so that you can say it weighs more.
Right.
Because you're probably not going to be able to tell.
Yeah. And then hold that picture out just a hair further.
Yeah, and then maybe tilt her where the back is
Yeah.
facing you, so
Looks
the
just a
belly
little
looks
better.
extra.
But if you're a beginner, you're probably going to land a huge one. So you're not going to have to hold
Well,
it
that
out.
is also true.
So.
We took one of our wildlife guys out, and he noodled like the biggest fish of the day.
It's how
Nice.
it works all the time.
And he was wearing starched blue jeans when he noodled, too.
Exactly.
Shout out to Jesse.
Wow.
You're a lot of fun, dude. But you wore starched blue jeans, which is a little crazy. But you did well.
Interesting.
He's going to see this, and he's going to laugh. Maybe.
That's funny.
Or he'll be coming for my job. Who knows?
Who knows? Anyways, well, we're going to get you out of here. Is there anything else about your research that you'd like to cover before we call her a day?
And I really think that covers it. Like I said, I really appreciate that if you guys catch these fish, that you let us know. If you have questions, you can reach out to me with an email or a phone call. Maybe we can drop that, like overlay it on the screen or something. Do something.
Yeah.
fancy.
Yeah. Or go to the website, call the Miami office.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
We'd love
ask for
to.
Nate.
We'd love to talk to you about the research. We'd love to hear about the fish you catch. I will make a note that this is similar project is also going on at Fort Gibson. And that number is going to be a different number to call, but we are going to be tagging fish in that system as well. So if you
Awesome.
frequent Fort Gibson, you can also find that information. But yeah, that's all I got.
That's really
Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to get you guys out of here and call this episode a wrap. Guys, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and be on the lookout for more research and more Real Talk, Real Tips podcasts. And we will see you next time.